everybody, Michael from One Sky with another video here, taking a look at the new moon on the 24th of January 2020, first new moon of this year, calendar year, and we're going to take a look at it from a little bit of a different angle than the usual look I take at these lunar cycles. So first of all, we're using a form of astrology called true Sidereal Astrology, which uses the exact constellations instead of even signs like Vedic or mainstream Western astrology uses. So that's a little bit different, but stay with me because this is some pretty neat stuff. That last lunar cycle that started in December 2019 was a solar eclipse followed by a lunar eclipse, and a lot of stuff's been stirred up. I know a lot of people who've had a really intense time the last couple weeks and just have had major remnants of the past being forced to the surface, major change in the life, major issues coming up for review, a lot of healing. And the good news for this lunar cycle is it's going to take place in grounded, pragmatic Capricorn. Mercury's in Capricorn, and it's going to be a bit less intense by the looks of it than the last one, and it might be a good time to integrate, might be a good time to begin to ground and settle with some of the things that may have been stirred up in the previous lunar cycle. First off, one thing that I notice is that all the planets are direct. And that's going to be the case until April 25th, when Pluto stations retrograde, and we have a couple months that are really going to be consciously directed, quite possibly more so than usual. We might be able to make forward progress. We might be able to take steps to further our goals and our aims at this time. That's often the case when planets are direct, and when all the planets are direct, there can be a nice wave kind of cresting, and we can catch that and ride it in to the shore of our largely our own design. A lot of this has to do with where we've set our own trajectory and momentum, the kind of choices we've made. Looking at this lunar cycle, we can see, as mentioned, that we have the Sun, the Moon, and Mercury all in Capricorn. So one thing I've been taking note of during the last couple lunar cycles, kind of quietly noticing but without really saying anything about it in the videos, because I wasn't really sure, but I started to watch in my own chart the house placements of the new moon, the 2 quarter moons, and the full moon. These are like the cardinal points of a lunar cycle. So I do want to take just a moment here before we jump into taking a look at the energies and alignments and say, you can get a true sidereal birth chart from Mastering the Zodiac. That's Athens' site. You can get it from his chart calculator, and you can see where in your personal natal chart is this 4 degrees or 3 degrees 56 arc minutes. Where is that in your chart? By which I mean what house? And we can get information here about the areas of life, the area of life that this might be likely to really be speaking to, be talking about. For example, my early Capricorn is in the 12th house, and this new moon takes place conjunct my natal moon. So this is really going to have to do, for me personally, with themes of the spiritual, the expansive to the point of the very big picture. The themes around a moon in the 12th house for me are emotional availability, spiritual service, and meditation. But I don't want to go on about my own chart. I want to say that I do encourage everybody to take a look, because we're going to be noting the placements of all 4 of the cardinal directions: the new moon, waxing quarter moon, the full moon, and the waning quarter moon. And for more information about how to harmonize your intentions, your movement toward growth, your fulfillment during this lunar cycle, and how to integrate that into your life, we can get our own charts out and start really drilling down here and taking note. So I have found this to be somewhat accurate, and I am going to include that information in this video and encourage you all to check that out for yourself. So back to it. We have a Capricorn new moon. So the themes right away are going to be about grounding and integrating, stabilizing, and out of the new growth that's been stirred up last cycle, we're going to want to formulate systems. We're going to want to formulate structures in our lives for dealing with those more tumultuous aspects. Now, Saturn is the dispositor of this new moon. Saturn is ruling Capricorn. So for some information about the flavor that this might take, I want to look to this Saturn right here, and it is conjoined to Pluto in Sagittarius. And interestingly, Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is home, still in domicile in its own stars. So we have a trail of disposition heading back to Sagittarius and ultimately staying there, in that Jupiter is there. So the dispositor of Saturn, Jupiter, there's no dispositor. Jupiter's at home, and this all traces back in its subtle influence to the stars of Sagittarius, where last lunar cycle's new moon took place, and a lot of the themes of expansion, expansion and emergence are taking place. So here we're still connected to that energy, but we want to begin to ground it and integrate it into systems in our lives. Maybe new systems that can manage, that can channel and corral, maybe give better expression to, or give a fitting container to some of these energies. Now, one thing I notice is that Jupiter is here with the south node K2, and Saturn is there with mighty Pluto. Now, K2 and Pluto both tend to bring out pretty intense expressions of anything that they come into contact with. There is an intensifying, and with themes of Capricorn, with themes of Saturn, with themes of South Node K2, we have a looking backwards to the past. And this fits the theme of the eclipse cycle because it was a South Node eclipse. So any kind of review or status check on the past is going to be continuing to be appropriate here, as it was the last cycle. We're still dealing with themes of integrating maybe anything that we're dealing with newly in the last cycle that may have to do with changing past structures. We may be dealing with themes of emerging even some repressed energies that now have the opportunity to come up for review, be expressed, and be part of our healing process. And this is a great energy to engage in a grounded retrospection, beginning to process that eclipse cycle and anything that it shook up. So setting intentions in alignment with this is really going to go a long way for us. So right now, as I make this, it's Wednesday the 15th, and in the time as we approach this new moon on the 24th of January, we're going to be making way, we're going to be clearing space, and ideally we're going to be setting intentions around these themes. that I'm talking about, or anything that arises to you and really sticks out as you're listening to this. Anything that just feels right in the heart or in the inner experience. But the best intentions in my own experience are those that are in accord and in alignment with the lunar cycles and the celestial cycles, because it's like sailing with the wind at your back. You can just make more progress in less time, and we can accomplish a great deal with the help of the celestial bodies. So Capricorn is about evaluating the established systems that we have. It's about retrospection. It's about steady, practical, grounded energy. It's traditionally kind of guarded and conservative, and that may be really appropriate if you have had a lot of stuff stirred up or turned up in this last lunar cycle, that we take a little more conservative, grounded approach and really let things stabilize for ourselves. With a square to Uranus here, we see the sun and moon making this aspect that can bring about especially interesting insights. And anytime there's a square to a new moon, we know that one of the quarter moons is going to be close to the degree of that body. So this is going to play a role in this lunar cycle. Uranus is in the first degree of Eris, and the first quarter moon, the waxing quarter moon, will take place in Eris. So this is great because Uranus is a proper counterbalance to Capricorn's overly heavy or boringly conservative side. It can bring kind of out-of-the-box view. It can bring the chance to have access to our genius, our higher self. Some really unconventional insights come through the way of Uranian consciousness. So that is just about the only major aspect that the sun and moon are making. There is a sextile up to Chiron, and we will likely continue to see with that harmonious aspect healing and integrating being part of this whole cycle. And these relationships, these core relationships, make this new moon a pretty simple template. There are some other things going on, but the basics are really about innovating ways to establish strategies, reforming Uranus, any existing structures, Capricorn, that might be better able to handle or harness or control, corral, give container to the energies that are expressing themselves, especially if they've been turned up, stirred up, and are a little uncomfortable, needing integration. And that's the template for this new moon. That is going to color the energy of the whole lunar cycle. Now, on a side note, we have Mars down here in passionate, all or nothing Scorpio Fucus cusp territory. And it is making some aspects that are interesting. It's making a 1 degree 5 minute square to Venus. And Venus is with Neptune in aloof Aquarius. So both of these are making supportive relationships to Mercury in Capricorn. And that may have some expression during the course of this lunar cycle. The dynamics of romantic relationship might be on our mind at this time, and we can explore any conflict of interest between grounded, pragmatic approach, where Mercury is, between any parts of ourself that might be too aloof or just too committed, too all in. That dichotomy could raise its head as a theme. But again, that's a side note. It's some aspects that involve the personal planets, Venus, Mars, Mercury, And with those covered and the sun and moon taken into account, I think that is really the major celestial forces that may reflect in our inner world in this lunar cycle. There is another side note I wanted to make, and that regards Pluto, because Pluto is making a very, very close, down here in the lower left, we can see a 0 degree and 3 arc minutes. That's 3/60ths of 1 degree. This is a very close to exact relationship. And Pluto is coming into this relationship with Eris here in Pisces. So even though Pluto and Eris are both influences that revolve around the deep unconscious forces within our psyche, the forces around death, the forces around change, forces around darkness, chaos, forces that have to do with, in Eris's case, strife and struggle. With the square, it's often seen to bring out a challenge here. So there may be some deep churnings in the waters, in the oceanic waters of our psyche that could possibly be challenging. And I think that the best way to harness that contact is to just put our work in, put our feet one in front of the other, and continue to harness any strife or struggle as we channel that into progress. Pluto's ability to change, and again in contact with Saturn, to change those structures, to change and evolve the structures that we have been placing in our life to adapt to any newly emerging energies. So this isn't a bad influence, but it could be carrying the potential to be an uncomfortable influence at times. I always think it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. So recognizing these things hopefully will be a source of strength and benefit to you all. So I've been watching the cardinal points of the moon, like I said, and I've noticed that the sign and the house placement do give clues. I want to switch here to the to the waxing quarter chart. Now notice this, we've switched charts. This is the first quarter moon on 1st of February 2020. And as I noted, that moon's going to go exact in quarter to the sun in the degrees of Eris. Just barely within degree of conjunction. I mean, we're at 9.5 degrees to Uranus, but we are there in contact in Eris. And this could be interesting because the first quarter moon is generally the point in the cycle where the seed we planted on the new moon, we first see it begin to sprout. We see emergence and we see form in the first phases of development. That whole first quarter phase is really just about kind of watering and nurturing the seed. We don't really know if it's going to grow. We in most cases hope it does, but here with the moon in Eris on February 1st, we should see the fruition of our work in the form of the emergence of something, that intention that we set back in Capricorn. So this all ties together, and an Aries moon is really talking about inner boundaries, emotional health, our sense of ourself and our world. But I do encourage you, again, to get that true sidereal chart from Mastering the Zodiac and check out where 11 degrees Aries is in your chart. See what house might this affect. This might be a positive or expanded self-image, although this is in the 3rd house for me personally, so that might involve new ways of thinking about myself, might involve new ways of talking about myself, might involve communication, 3rd house issues, teaching, learning. There's a real potential here to again get some information that's really relevant about how this might manifest. And looking ahead here to the full moon, this is an interesting configuration. As the sun moves through Capricorn, we have the moon at 5 degrees of Leo for its full expression, in a very nice kite formation with the sun, making a grand trine here to Eris, increasing with Mars on the Galactic Center. Now, when we have a grand trine, we have 3 forces in a kind of triune flow, a flux, and this is genuinely blessed and usually pretty mystical. It's not the most powerful or dynamic configuration of energies, but it does tend to alleviate. Or activate blessings. Generally speaking, planets are always going to dominate aspects in my experience, and Mars and Eris are not always easy roller coasters to ride. However, I do feel that there's a lot of potential here for innovation, because Uranus and Mars are also in contact. So we have a Uranus trine here. It's not the grand trine. We do have Uranus bringing its benefic light to mighty Mars. And that combination of Uranus and Mars is known to be daring, pretty lucky combo, and it often attends new developments or innovations, new expressions. So even though the sun is in Capricorn, the moon in this configuration is going to emphasize, again, with Leo, we have self-expression, like that quarter moon in Eris. We're here with the full moon, still having to do with the fires of self-expression in contact with Mars. It could be a fiery influence, and it could be really a place where we can emphasize new developments about the way we shine, the way we express, the way we innovate. There's a lot here with Uranus and Eris contacts that has to do with the unexpected, with very, very, in no uncertain terms, these are very unpredictable influences. So I want to say that anytime you get Mars really activated, like in this place close to the Galactic Center, it's on a point in the cycle where it's going to be expressing. It's going to be a part of this equation. And Mars is assertive, like Leo. So this could be, even though Capricorn is a pretty well conservative influence, this full moon could be a time of great expanse and self-expression. Ultimately, we're going to want to balance these two forces, the force of our generosity, our radiance, our magnanimous, theatrical, expressive side, Leo, and our conservative, reclusive, stable, orthodox, and somewhat more reclusive side, which is Capricorn. Again, check the house placements, because this moon happens to happen in my 6th house of work and health. So manifesting those new ways of thinking about myself, new patterns of expression, all these themes, which is radiance, Leo in the real world of Capricorn, may relate to my work, my general well-being, as the 6th house also gives information about the health of the native. And in ancient times, the 6th house ruled slavery. This is a totally different association than what we give it today, but in old times, this was really where you found information about our captive, our enslaved circumstances. To whatever degree that was a factor in the life. And so with Capricorn ruling restriction, Mars and Uranus in contact here can be perfect for figuring out how to break out of those inner cages, maybe the emotional cages that I may be dealing with. And that may be true across house placements. I really do see this influence as being very Mars, Eris, Uranus, Moon, all in trine. This is a big jailbreaking influence. So that's an interesting contrast to the stars of Capricorn, where the sun is. And now looking at the waning quarter moon in Libra, we do see about 1 arc minute approaching a sextile with Saturn. Now, a waning quarter moon, like the waxing quarter moon, the first quarter moon is the sign of the sprout emerging, and the full moon is the sign of the harvest, the fruition, the expression, the full expression of the growth and production of the seed we planted at the new moon. The last quarter moon, the waning quarter moon, is a time to integrate. So we have emergence, expression, and integration. And with integration in Libra, in close contact to Saturn, this is really going to be a strong influence that will benefit us in balancing that Capricorn-Leo dichotomy and integrating in a Libran way, integrating in a harmonious way, any new developments or, even systems busting stuff, innovative stuff, integrating that into the structures at hand. So what we have isn't really so much of an energy of just coming through and smashing old structures, but really kind of updating them, making them available to the present moment so they don't stay stuck in the past. Making them available to the present moment so that they don't stay stuck in the past. And with this moon, in this lunar cycle, Mars will pass the Galactic Center for a new phase of its expression. And this is a pretty tenuous time to see a new phase of the expression of war, what with everything happening in Iran now and all of the portents that represents. But that's what we have. We have Mars coming around the GC, and for better or worse, we will see. So this waning quarter is really less about Mars and more about integrating the whole lessons of the cycle into our conscious mind, into our DNA, into the fabric of our soul and our being, so that we can move on and make space during the final quarter of the lunar cycle for that next new moon. And as you can see here, the sun is in Aquarius, ingressing the sign of Aquarius, the constellation of Aquarius, as the moon in Libra makes an exact square to it. And a quarter moon will always be an exact square. There's nothing truly exceptional about that, except that a Libra Aquarian contact is particularly mental. It's about balancing, which is Libra, and fitting in the pieces where they go, which is Aquarius. So with Libra at the zenith of my own chart, this is happening mostly in the 9th house. So this could be about integrating all that into my own worldview or larger philosophy. It really helps to understand the placements of these. And like I said, I've been watching this for a while, and I've really seen some fruitful information emerge. I've really seen some helpful stuff. So get your own chart. Capricorn, Aries, Leo, Libra. What is this talking about in your life, in your expression? Obviously, we're not carbon copies or cardboard cutouts of each other, and that's a good thing. Unquestionably good thing. So get your chart out, get informed, and see. Take a little test and see. Pay attention to the lunar cycle and notice how these energies are manifesting in your life. Looking forward to that next new moon, it's going to be in the degrees of the constellation of Aquarius with all the planets direct. And this is very progressive. This, after we ground during this lunar cycle, our next lunar cycle might further open and progress and innovate these themes that may have been stirred up in the life. In eclipse season, or we may find a way to engage Aquarius's pattern recognition, which is excellent. The way Aquarian intelligence works is just outstanding at putting things in their right place, fitting everything in where it belongs so that the whole functions excellently, efficiently, as it should. Now, this Capricorn cycle is definitely going to be a great time to integrate and ground. And as we move forward from February 15th on to that new moon at the end of February, I think that the date is right about the 24th on that, February 24th. But don't hold me to that. I'm actually not 100%. But as we move towards it, let's establish systems, let's establish routines, habits, let's establish a connection with the grounded, the real, the pragmatic, and simply use this time to stabilize after eclipse season and before an Aquarian new moon. During this cycle, we have the opportunity to use what we've gained to build new patterns of self-understanding, which can manifest as new behaviors and self-expression. And these can be adapted in innovative ways from what we're used to, from what we have in place, without destroying what we have in place, without rearranging too wildly, just adapting, innovating, renovating, reforming. This is a sort of personal reformation for a lot of us. I'm going to step out on a limb and just kind of make a predictive statement there. And integrating this new growth harmoniously as we begin to clear space and make room with this moon in Libra. And as it comes around, we're going to have a chance to touch on a lot of the themes and let those go, because the moon will be in a phase of approaching the sun. It'll be moving towards the balsamic phase of its expression as it's touching on Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, South Node, the past, and Mars in its new expression. So we can take all of this, and at the end of February we can take these themes and we can just turn them over, turn them over, and make way for that new Aquarian energy. All right, everybody. That's this lunar cycle in a nutshell. I thank you for making it through this video. I do hope that you take a deeper interest in your own chart and how these energies might interact with you. And I hope you pay attention, take note, and I hope that your findings are as interesting as mine. Till next time, I thank you all for watching. Goodbye.